Last year's Loyola Ramblers took a massive step forward and finished in a tie for the Atlantic 10 regular season title. Now it's time to preview year 4 of the Drew Valentine era at Loyola. Loyola finished last season with a record of 23-10, 15-3 in the A10, finished 93rd in KenPom, 192nd offensive efficiency, 28th defensive efficiency, the sixth best two-point defense in the entire country, and the best defensive team in the A10 via KenPom defensive efficiency numbers. But now the Braden Norris era is over. Philip Alston, Damon Delacoon, Tom Welch, Patrick Mwamba, and Greg Dolan all move on. So now we take a look at this year's coaches poll for the A10, where Loyola shows up fifth behind VCU, Dayton, St. Joe's, and St. Louis. St. Louis is going to be one of those wild card teams with a new coach coming over from Indiana State. Did a great job there. St. Joe's has been one of those teams that's gotten picked higher than they finished the last couple of years. So we'll see if this year with Eric Reynolds they can get it done. Loyola fifth, I think that's kind of got to be their floor. I don't really see them finishing any worse than that. That would take something crazy given how good this defense looks. So going into this year in KenPom, preseason, of course, but Loyola ranks 79th. The A10 ranks 7th among all 31 conferences, which I think is very, very telling of where this conference is right now. It's been really good or really improving over the last few years. They had a couple down years, but really since Loyola's came back or came over, they've really improved. We've got conference rankings as SEC, Big 12, Big 10, Big East, ACC, Mountain West, who had what, 4, 5, 6 teams even in the tournament last year. And then the A10. So really love to see them ranked 7th on that list. And now we'll take a look at the A10, just the A10 rankings via KenPom. Loyola shows up 3rd on that list, behind only Dayton and VCU. So that in terms of these metrics, they show up a lot higher. Their defense is going to be what carries them, as it did last year. But they've got all those centerpieces back on the defensive end, I believe, or at least have brought in transfers to fill in those voids. I think St. Louis is the wild card in there that could be in that top 4 that really isn't on the KenPom. Key returners for the Ramblers this year. Seniors, number 0, Des Watson, preseason all-conference first team, tied for the team lead in points per game last year at 12.6, 4.6 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists, 1 steal a game, and shot 38.6% from 3. He's a do-it-all guy, 6'5" guard. He leads the charge. He'll be the team leader this year. He's the kind of guy you want leading this team. Moving along, we've got the man in the middle, sophomore, number 24, Miles Rubin, 6'10" rim protector. He is probably the most important guy on this defense. Without him, that inside presence is nothing near the same. So I expect him to be arguably the most important player on this team. He's preseason all-conference 3rd team selection this year and preseason all defense. He's the reason that those guards can be so aggressive and so great on the outside is his defense at the rim. Moving along, Jaden Dawson Jr. He started 14 games last year, averaged 7.9 points per game, 2.2 rebounds, and a steal. Another big guard, 6'4". Arguably could be a starter, but could come off the bench as well, but he'll get plenty of time. 5th year guy who I think will be a breakout guy, had a little bit of some breakout games last year, Sheldon Edwards Jr., number 13. Averaged 6 points a game last year, but shot 40.2% from 3. He had 27 points in a game on February 7th at George Mason, where he was 6 of 10 from 3. Again, a big guard at 6'4", and a guy who I think is huge for this offense, which could struggle at times, has struggled at times as their clearly defense first team, but I think he's probably their most important offensive weapon. Jalen Quinn, number two, junior, 4.5 points per game last year, the lefty. Also had 5 assists in 4 games, and that's going to be important given Braden Norris's departure. He's experienced. He only shot 25% from three last year, but as a freshman, he did shoot 36.4% from three and around similar attempts. So I think he is a capable shooter. 6'3", so another fairly big guard there in the backcourt. Getting into some of the newcomers, transfers in. First, we'll look at Jalen DeLoach, transfer from Georgia last year, spent 2 years before that at VCU, so he's a senior this year, 6'9", needed a big guy to come in after losing Philip Alston, Damon Delacoon, Tom Welch, some of those bigger guys. He started 6 games last year at Georgia. He averaged 3.6 points per game and 3.3 rebounds. He could be an impact defender for this team. He had 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals in the NIT semifinals against Seton Hall. So he is another guy that fits into this defensive mold and a guy who can definitely impact the game there. Justin Moore, a junior, he'll wear number 8 from Drexel, 6'3". He led Drexel in points per game last year at 12.4, 3.5 assists per game, 1.1 steals, and he was in double figures in 19 games, and he had 34 against Bryant. So he's a guy who could take some playmaking, could be a scorer, which could be needed on this offense. And he could also be a bit of a point guard with Braden Norris again um, being graduated. Moving along, Kimani Uinso, sorry if I got that wrong, from Washington State transfer, 6'7", another big wing, started 10 games last year for the Cougars, 4.3 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 2.1 assists, zero point 0.7 blocks. So he's another guy that can do it all, do a little bit of everything. 3.1 or 3.1, 31.3% from three. He can definitely impact the game in a multitude of ways. Moving on, he'll be a junior this year, so he's got 2 years left. And then a senior transfer from UC San Diego, Francis Nokori, 6'7", averaged double figures all 3 years that he was at UCSD, 5.5 rebounds last year, 34% from three. So another big wing who can do a lot of different facets of the game. 34% from three on high attempts, 4.5 attempts per game. They also bring in 4 freshmen, Daniil Glaskov from Russia, Seifeld and Hendaway from Egypt. So a couple international guys there, and then Jack Turner and Braden Young. Let's take a look at the Loyola schedule for this year. KenPom has a projected record of 20-9, 11-7 in conference. The Ramblers will open up on Monday, November 4th against Chicago State, and then they'll take on Detroit Mercy and then Eureka in a non-D1 matchup. So 3 cinches to start the year, 3 easy wins before they hit the road for their first road game at Princeton, return home for Southern Utah, Tulsa, Eastern Michigan, South Florida. That should be pretty good one. Before a fun one against San Francisco. This will be at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, part of a triple header that day. We'll have Akron and Milwaukee in game 1, Northwestern and Georgia Tech, and then Loyola and San Francisco. I'm hoping to be at that one, so hoping to see the Ramblers on December 15th in Milwaukee. December 18th, they'll take on Canisius. Oakland, and then Oakland on December 22nd will open up the Diamond Head Classic in Hawaii. So they'll get 3 games there right around Christmas when there's not a whole lot of college basketball going on. So that'll be good to have some eyeballs for those games. Before getting into A10 play, they get welcomed by VCU At home on January 4th, before taking on LaSalle and St. Joe's on the road, home against Rhode Island at Dayton. There's a tough one right there. Home against Fordham, and then at George Mason, home against St. Joe's, St. Bonaventure, at Duquesne, Richmond, home against St. Louis, at Davidson, home against Dayton, George Washington at St. Louis, home Davidson, and finish it off at UMass. So a couple of things that stand out. Here's the teams that they will play twice out of that schedule. So with a bit of an unbalanced schedule, they do get four teams twice. They get Davidson, Dayton, St. Joe's, and St. Louis. So no cupcakes there. And as we saw in the coaches poll, Dayton, St. Joe's, and St. Louis all picked ahead of Loyola, who is picked fifth. So three of the top four teams they'll get twice. Of course, they don't get VCU twice, and they don't have to go to VCU. So that is positive. That is positive. Another positive, they don't have to go to St. Bonaventure, and they don't have to go to Florida, which is actually a pretty tough place to play there in the Bronx. So I think overall they get a tough schedule, but there's no way this defense won't keep them in those tough road games or keep them in pretty much every game. It's going to be a fun season in the A10 across the board. Loyola should be a lot of fun to watch. Super excited for this season to get going. If you made it to the end of this video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think of the video and what you think of this year's Loyola squad. But one thing's for sure, this defense is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So good luck to the Ramblers this season. Excited to get it going.